Joining me now is a woman who has denounced the president's recent behavior, Democratic Representative Karen Bass of California. She is also the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Madam Chair Lady, let me ask you first, how do you and the Congressional Black Caucus intend to protect, because this is very dangerous, and protect politically and otherwise these four women, two of whom are members of the Congressional Black Caucus? Absolutely, two of whom are our freshman members, and we're deeply concerned about the security for all four women. So one of the things that we have done, and we're going to actually step it up, is calling for these women to have more protection. They need to have individual security. It is a shame that our president actually puts four members of Congress' life in danger. Ilhan Omar, there's already been 3 people who have been arrested for threatening to kill her. Arrested? Arrested. Wow. Now, how do you hear from your Republican colleagues where only 4 of them voted to denounce the remarks? How do the rest of them even explain how they could shrink in this very critical moment to go on the record and say this was racist? And say nothing. Let me just tell you that over these last couple of years, my Republican colleagues, when they're talking to us privately, will admit their concern, their shame, their embarrassment over what the president says. But I have to tell you that this week, it's been dead silence. Absolutely no response from them. And I think some of them at this point don't know what to say. They're fearful of this guy. But you would think at some point you would have to say, my integrity means something to me. Absolutely. Let me ask you, before I want to talk to you about the census that I know you're going to be announcing this week, the initiative that the caucus and you're leading. But I want to ask you about Mr. Mueller's coming to testify this week. Yes. What are you expecting, and how do you think the committee will handle it? Well, first of all, I think that we on the Democratic side will be very organized. On the Republican side, I expect a lot of theatrics. This is at the committee hearing? Yes, on Judiciary, where I serve. You serve on the committee, yes. I do, and I think that, you know, our focus on Judiciary is looking at Volume 2 of the report, which is obstruction of justice. I know a lot of people are intimidated, 488 pages, that's too much to read. But let me just tell your listeners, if you just read the executive summary on Volume 1 and Volume 2, it's only about 20 pages. It's really a devastating report for the president. There are 10 examples of how the president broke the law. And so we expect that Mueller is going to stay true to the report, which means he's not going to give us any additional information. But just hearing him talk about what is in the report, I think will be more than sufficient. The report itself. The Mueller report. Where the president broke the law. The Mueller report lays out at least 10 examples of how the president broke the law. But Mueller's rationale is you can't indict a sitting president, so I'm not going to say he broke the law. I'm just going to give you all of the information and the examples of how he did. For example, telling McCann, his lawyer, to get Mueller fired. I mean, you know, there are just a number, telling Lewandowski to go in and fire Sessions. Lewandowski wasn't even on the president's staff. So there are all of these incidences where he was trying to get the special counsel fired, but he wanted people to lie for him. He wanted other people to do it. The only thing that actually saved the president a little bit is that all of those people that he tried to get to break the law for him refused to. Wow. And if he was any other person, he would have 10 indictments for the 10 examples of obstructing justice. Well, we'll be watching you and your committee members. Let me ask you, before I get to census, you and Senator Booker have initiated a criminal justice reform move. Explain, because you know how criminal justice has been a lot of my life's work. Exactly, and mine too. We share that in common. So what Senator Booker and I introduced is called a second look. It's an opportunity for people who have served longer than 10 years
to have their sentences reevaluated. But let me just share something with you, Rev, because I'm also the acting chair of the Subcommittee on Crime. So we are looking at criminal justice, but I believe that in the criminal justice reform movement, women and children have really not received the attention that they deserve.
Right.
So this week in the committee, we had a whole hearing looking at women in the criminal justice system. As a matter of fact, the woman that created Orange is the New Black was one of the witnesses. But women have very specific needs. Number one, why women get arrested is different. What happens to them while they're incarcerated is different. And what happens to them afterwards is different. So the majority of women are mothers, and the majority of women are the primary caretakers. Their children get sent into foster care. They're not able to visit their children. And a lot of the war on drugs, some of the laws that were used to snare a man who was a drug trafficker actually ensnared women. So the conspiracy laws, a lot of women are in prison because of their relationships with men. We even had a hearing in Los Angeles with the Congressional Black Caucus and the subcommittee where we looked at reforms that California has passed, ballot initiatives that California has passed, and we're looking at how they're working and what more is needed. Another big focus of mine this year is going to be developing programs to help people return and be reintegrated back into their community.
Census. On Tuesday, you have a big announcement. I don't want you to preempt your announcement, but give us an idea. All right, well, go ahead and preempt. Tell us what you're going to be announcing.
Absolutely. Well, on Tuesday, the Congressional Black Caucus is going to launch Congressional Black Caucus Census 2020. Now, all of us have been rightfully focused on the citizenship question in terms of the census. But to me, an even bigger question is how the census is going to be administered this time. It's going to be administered online. So can you imagine households in our communities receiving a postcard telling them to go online and fill out your census form? Who's going to do that? And so we know the census is next spring, but we want to begin the work now. And so on Tuesday, the Congressional Black Caucus is convening African-American leaders from around the country, and then we will be launching this new task force. We're going to get to work now.
And people don't understand that because that will lead to an undercount if you don't go to work now. An
undercount, denial of resources. You know, one of the criminal justice issues we need to work on is where you are counted when you're incarcerated. So if you are counted in an area that you're not going to return to, a rural area, then it actually penalizes our communities where the people come back to.
All right, Congresswoman from California, Karen Bass, and when I visit you at the Hill, they say, no, the chair lady will see you now. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.